you're obviously out there super involved with the operator, landlord, and enterprise community, and kind of how it's affecting everything that's going on with just real estate in general, right? And you and your team are really disrupting not only our own company, which is AY, but also enterprise users, other service providers. I mean, the Avant platform that you're utilizing is actually being utilized by other companies outside of AY, right? JLL, CBRE, some of the others. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Avant, how the platform came to be, right? I think you were working on some of this in a previous life somewhere else. So would love for you to kind of tap into how that came to be and kind of how it's evolved, how you ended up at AY and how that information is being used.
Absolutely, Gio. So I think that there's a couple core kind of principles kind of around Avant. One, we always kind of say that commercial real estate's transparent, and it indeed is, because there's data and information everywhere. But it's also highly inefficient in that there's data and information everywhere. And so when you think about kind of any real estate process during the life cycle, the inefficiency from a human perspective is quite high, because you're always kind of doing situational type kind of data gathering analysis and report back out to kind of client that technically can and should be kind of automated. So that's kind of one kind of core principle. The other kind of core principle is that, and this might be kind of disrespectful to the owners, but no corporate occupier of any size kind of wakes up in the morning and thinks about real estate. They think about their own business and how obviously, the challenges and opportunities of that business. That could mean they're growing their talent base. It could mean they're contracting their talent base. It could mean they're shifting their clients. It could mean they're, bringing up kind of a new revenue stream, whatever it might be. Obviously, real estate's the secondary or tertiary kind of impact of that kind of business-based decision. And why that's so fundamental is that because as we're doing in Avant, kind of through really data aggregation, automated analytics, and kind of modeling, it's really the real estate adjacent data, which we find is kind of most valuable to kind of guiding our clients, not only around locational-based decisions, space-based decisions, but also as it relates to talent-based decisions, business-based decisions, et cetera. From our perspective, Avant's kind of an ecosystem that has very micro-segmented data on the asset, space, entity, activity, transaction side that you can kind of get all of the micro-based real estate knowledge that you need to make the best real estate decision. But it starts with 85% of data that kind of gets clients across any different aspect, occupier, investor, developer, very comfortable with kind of a locational based decision first, and then kind of goes into the real estate. So what Avant kind of simply is, it's aggregating, to be quite honest, a lot of disparate kind of data sets across dozens, hundreds of providers, and thousands and tens of thousands of data sets all in one place. The beauty of our industry is 100% of the data that we care about is geo-based or locational based. It always ties back to a specific point. That could be a country, it could be a state, it could be a city, a county, a zip code, an asset, a space, a seat, but it's all geo-based. And so the basis of Avant is it's a geo-based data aggregation platform that not only stores data, automates the analysis of that, automates the visualization of it. And now based on what we've kind of built over the past 2 years, since we kind of came over to Avison Young, we've built up a substantial enough data platform that the really cool part in the next kind of 6, 12, 18 months is we then can begin to model potential outcomes and predictions, i.e. what a lot of what we refer to as the AI piece. I don't like to use that word because we don't have enough data in the industry to have really AI, but it's kind of like AI light or what I would call model. So I think it's pretty cool. We don't think there's a big, there's a lot of entities that are doing a lot of things in the commercial real estate market, but very much kind of in verticalities. And a lot of them focus on the overall operation and management of assets. That's where like 99% of prop tech funding is kind of going, is really, data and technology across the operation of and management of kind of buildings. we think we're in a pretty unique kind of, smaller subset that's trying to figure out transparency of locations and markets.
So can I jump in with a clarifying question? So I watched in my research prep, since I missed the webinar this morning, I watched a little Vimeo on Avant and I was like, oh, I see. But so from a user, like who's the user who logs into Avant and what are they trying to accomplish when they do it?
It's really different, Jamie, in terms of who the users are for Avant. So one, from, I would say, where I kind of came from, spending a lot of time at kind of JLL before, the users there in terms of building similar, what we think are now kind of more advanced tools, but they were mainly for kind of our Salesforce and brokerage teams. Our philosophy here is we're going to make, first and foremost, markets and decisions more transparent for our clients. So we are, and that is first and foremost, right? It's Geo's client that we want to embrace Avant, even sometimes before kind of Geo. And so we're kind of building the tools to kind of really engage and excite that kind of audience. And through that, and it's actually kind of happening kind of quite naturally, through actually kind of our engagement with outside clients, we're actually converting a lot of our internal people, as opposed to vice versa. Normally it would go convert internal, go external. We're actually converting external kind of, and that is converting internal.
So if give me a use case. End user wakes up, they happen to think about real estate. Are they in the mindset of, okay, I need some space for folks that are no longer coming to HQ. I need to know, where do people live? Where, to your point about prediction, like, are they prediction, like, where will people live in 5 years? Like, where are things shifting to?
So Jamie, I'm going to use, Gio and I started to talk about this, but I'm going to reference actually a retail example, which I think is the most granular. And as Gio and I would both say, and actually a prospect of ours, which is now a client, a large healthcare operator in the United States, after kind of seeing Avant for about 10 minutes, they said, I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to retailify the rest of the commercial real estate market. And that was actually the best example. That was the best description that I had heard. I was like, you're right. I wish I could have thought that. But you're exactly right. We're trying to retailify, the commercial real estate market. So in this example, which happened to be kind of in California, in Southern California, about 14 months ago, a large institutional investor said, I don't understand who my customer base is at my shopping center. What can Avant do to help me do that? So essentially we kind of meshed together probably 20 different data sets. And through meshing together kind of 20 different data sets, one, we kind of first started with kind of mobility data and cell phone data, kind of understand the true trade area of that shopping center, and then the true micro demographic of that shopping center. And that could tell us kind of where those people were going to and coming from at all kind of different types of the day. As we started to kind of mesh in office building data, office tenancy data, multifamily data, demographics data, all these other types of things, a couple of days later, we were able to assess. The client was expecting us to say we have a highly affluent kind of customer who is X% educated. What we were able to kind of actually answer is the vast majority of your customer base, more than 2/3 of it, is a highly educated worker that has kind of education degrees that are 90% usually kind of bachelor's and 40% of those kind of advanced degrees. They happen to be vast majority male, vast majority actually non-white male. Those incomes are kind of ranging anywhere from 135 to kind of 210,000. They're 90% focused in STEM jobs, particularly as it relates to technology and entertainment. And then the beauty of how like an Avison Young comes in with their own data. And by the way, based on our pings, those people are largely coming from these 6 buildings. And thus the tenancy of those buildings was largely in 2 assets, Snap and Google. And so we were able to say,
wow,
okay, your true customer base in the average of it was a 27-year-old Asian male who worked in tech, who earned $145,000 a year, who worked at that building for Snap. And yes, owner, you're right. Your retail mix is completely wrong.
Right, for that group, right. That's so
And so the key
interesting.
strategy then for our leasing team was mainly to focus on the food and beverage options intraday and kind of post work that were much more catered to that demographic. And so I think, Jamie, that's what we're really, that retail case is very easy to replicate across.
Totally. Yeah, right. You could apply that to a flex operator. You could, right, anyone.